I didn't start reading the Quran to find God. I read it to ruin Omar. Yeah, that sounds disgusting, I know. But if I'm telling this story, I'm telling it straight. Back then, I wasn't a good man. I had a title, a nice suit, a fake-ass smile. But deep down, I was just empty, angry, proud, and scared someone like him might expose that. I'd just gotten promoted to regional director for a mid-sized software firm in Dallas. It was supposed to be my fresh start. Finally a place where I could call the shots. No more playing second fiddle to some Ivy League golden boy. I was top dog now. My first day, HR walked me around to introduce me to the team. And that's when I met him. Omar, quiet, polite, always wore the short-trimmed beard and button shirts. When he shook my hand, I noticed something weird. He didn't make eye contact. Didn't smile much, either. Just said, "Welcome aboard, sir," and went back to typing like I wasn't the most important person in that room. It bothered me. Way more than it should have. I told myself he was being disrespectful, that he thought he was too good to smile or shake a white guy's hand properly. But the truth? His calm unnerved me. It was like he was at peace, and I hated it. Over the next few weeks, I started watching him closely. He never joined the others for a birthday cake or Friday beers. Every afternoon around 1:15, he disappeared for 10 minutes. I finally asked HR about it. Oh, he's Muslim. He prays during the day. They said like it was nothing. Prays. At work. Like we're in Saudi Arabia or something. I smiled and nodded, but inside, I snapped. He thinks he's better than us. I told myself. Well, I'll show him who's boss. That's when I started digging. I told myself it was part of performance audit. Truth is, I was fishing for something. Anything. Late work, missed deadlines, complaints, whatever I could use. But Omar was clean. Like, surgically clean. Even the clients loved him. One even requested him by name on a multi-million-dollar deal. So I tried a different angle. I started casually bringing up political stuff in meetings. Man, did you guys see that terrorist attack in Europe? I'd say, glancing at Omar, he never reacted. Just sat there, stoic, like a damn monk. Once I accidentally scheduled a mandatory team training right during his Friday prayer. He asked politely if it could be moved earlier. I said, company policy comes first. He nodded, said nothing, and still showed up on time, focused. It drove me insane. I started reading about Islam, not understand it, but to weaponize it. I figure if I learned his faith, I could find pressure points, stuff to make him slip. Maybe mock a hadith here, twist a verse there. That's when things started to go sideways. See, the more I read, the less I hated. The Quran wasn't what I expected. It wasn't all fire and brimstone. It was weirdly calming. There was this one verse. And we have certainly made the Quran easy to remember. So, is there any who will remember? I don't know why, but that line stayed with me. I started reading more. At night, in secret. My wife caught me once and laughed. You converting or something? I joked back, nah, to spy on the enemy. But deep down, I was curious. Then came the day everything cracked open. We were pitching a high-profile deal to a foreign client. Biggest opportunity of the quarter. I was presenting, but the slides Omar had made were perfect, sharp, polished. He saved my ass. After the meeting, I didn't thank him. I couldn't, but he just smiled and said, "Glad I could help, sir." That smile, it wasn't smug. It was real, genuine. I felt small. The next week, my mom had a stroke. I left work in a rush, forgot to update my team. Total chaos. Deadlines missed. My inbox exploded. But one person held everything together. Omar. He stayed late, took over my calls, even coordinated a get-well basket for the team. HR told me, "You've got a real gem on your team." I didn't know what to say. When I came back, he greeted me at the door. "I prayed for your mother," he said. I didn't even believe in prayer. But for some reason, I almost cried. That night, I opened the Quran again. Not to find a weakness, but to find, I don't know, something. Hope. And that's when I realized the person I was trying to break. He had already saved me, but I wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet, because a storm was coming, and I was about to betray him one last time. I wish I could say I changed overnight. That one verse, one kind gesture, one "I prayed for your mother" was enough to turn me into a better man. But it wasn't. Truth is, when you spend your whole life feeding your ego, starving it feels like dying. And I wasn't ready to die yet. I was still that guy, the one who had to win, even if it meant torching the only good man I knew. So, yeah, I set Omar up. It was subtle, nothing dramatic, just a few carefully placed landmines. We had a security review coming up. I told IT to restrict access to our shared drive. Temporary protocol, I said. Then I forgot to inform Omar. Meanwhile, I assigned him a task that required those exact files, due in 48 hours. Client-facing, high visibility. I even CC'd our VP. He emailed me the next morning. "Sir, I don't have access to the project files. Should I request IT, or would you prefer I wait?" I didn't respond. Not right away. 24 hours passed. He followed up again. This time I replied, copying our boss. "These files have been accessible to the entire team. If you're unable to locate them, perhaps you should come see me directly." Cold, formal, like a snake in a suit. I wanted him to snap, to miss the deadline, to fail in front of the higher-ups. So I could say, "See, he's not as perfect as you think." But he didn't. Instead, he stayed until midnight and rebuilt the entire brief from scratch. On his personal laptop, he submitted it with an apology for the delay, even though I knew damn well it wasn't his fault. Worse, the client loved it. I didn't know Omar was so resourceful. The VP told me, "You should be grooming him for leadership." I nodded and forced a smile. Inside, I was drowning. That night, I drank half a bottle of bourbon and stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep, not because I felt guilty, at least that's what I told myself, but because I couldn't understand him. Why didn't he fight back? Why didn't he throw me under the bus? Why was he better than me? The next week, something unexpected happened. Omar invited me to lunch. Not some awkward coffee in the break room. He actually walked into my office and said, "Would you be willing to grab a bite with me today?" I froze. My first instinct was to say no. My second was to laugh in his face. But something in his tone, it wasn't pity. It was human. We ended up at this little Mediterranean place near the office. No booze, no loud music, just clean food, warm bread, and peace. We talked, or rather, he talked, about his family, how his parents came from Jordan in the 80s, how his mom worked 2 jobs so he could go to college, how he didn't always feel Muslim enough, how faith for him wasn't about judging people. It was about centering himself when the world got too loud. And then he said this: "People think I'm strong, but truth is, I struggle too. I just ask God for help every day. And he helps me, even when I don't deserve it." That hit me like a freight train, because I never asked anyone for help, not even God, especially not God. I'd built my whole life around being the smartest guy in the room, the most in control, the coldest head in the fire. And here he was, open, vulnerable, faithful. I left that lunch shaken. For the first time, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't like what I saw. Then came the final blow. 2 days later, our CEO flew in for an emergency meeting. I had no idea why. Turns out, someone had filed an anonymous ethics complaint about me, the IT restriction, the email setup, the communication failures. Someone had receipts. I panicked, called legal, started crafting my defense. But then Omar knocked on my door. He walked in, calm as always, and sat down. "I didn't file the complaint," he said, "but I know who did, and they're not wrong." I stared at him, waiting for the catch. "I forgave you before this even happened," he said. "I don't believe in revenge. I believe in accountability. I believe people can change." And just like that, the walls crumbled. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. I felt like I was sinking inside my own skin. He stood up and left me there. No threats, no smugness, just Grace. That was the day I broke. Not because I got caught, but because I realized I'd spent months trying to destroy a man who'd only ever responded with dignity. And that kind of power, that shook me more than anything I'd ever known. When you spent your whole life building walls, losing them feels like drowning in daylight. A week after Omar walked out my office, I was called into HR for a formal hearing. They had documents, emails, IT logs, my own words printed out and stapled to packets with little yellow tabs. I didn't even try to fight it. I just sat there, head lowered, nodding along while the HR manager used phrases like abuse of authority and violation of trust. Words I used to throw around like confetti when I was the one doing the firing. And now, I was the one being escorted out. I packed my things in silence. No goodbye party. No one looking me in the eye. Except Omar. He was there, standing by the elevator, holding a small white envelope. I didn't want to face him, but I did. "I'm sorry," I said, not because I got caught, but because I was wrong about everything. He nodded, quiet. No, I told you so. No righteous fury. He just handed me the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Even if your sins reach the clouds, Allah will forgive you when you turn to him sincerely." Hadith. No name, no lecture, just that. I walked out of that building and didn't look back. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I lost more than a job. I lost my identity, my confidence, my carefully curated reputation. My marriage cracked. My health took a dive. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The silence in my house was louder than a jet engine. And yet, that one quote stayed with me. Even if your sins reach the clouds. I started reading again, not as a weapon, not out of pride, but because I was desperate to understand how Omar stayed so calm through everything I threw at him. And somewhere between pages of English translations, YouTube videos of convert stories, and late-night journal entries, something shifted. I stopped blaming, stopped hiding. And for the first time since I was a kid, I got on my knees and whispered, "I don't know if you're real, but if you are, I'm tired. Please, help me." I cried for an hour, the kind of crying that empties your lungs and wrings out your soul. And the next morning, I felt lighter. Not fixed, not holy, but possible. Fast forward a year. I took a job at a nonprofit. Nothing fancy, admin work, mostly. Filing, scheduling, but it felt honest. Clean. One afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, it's Omar. You free for lunch?" I stared at the screen for a full minute before I replied. We met at the same Mediterranean place. Same warm bread. Same peaceful quiet. He looked the same. Maybe even more serene. "I heard you're doing good work," he said with a smile. "Helping people. That's what matters." I laughed, half embarrassed. Trying to. Still got a long way to go. He nodded. "So do I." We sat there for 2 hours. No awkwardness. No heavy talk. Just two human beings trying to be better. Before we left, I asked him something that had haunted me for a year. "Why didn't you report me?" He looked at me and said, "Because your war wasn't with me. It was with yourself. I just happened to be in the way." That broke me again. But this time it didn't hurt. It healed. Today, I'm still learning. Still unlearning. I haven't converted. Yet. Maybe someday. I don't know. But I do know this. I tried to destroy a man because of his faith. And somehow his faith rebuilt me. It's been 3 years since I left that glass tower office behind. I used to think titles mattered. That the size of your desk, the number on your paycheck, the car you drive, those were the signs you'd made it. Now, I drive a used Honda, answer phones at a nonprofit, and share a desk with a retired Navy vet named Pete who chews too loud and says "brother" at the end of every sentence. And weirdly, I'm happier than I've ever been. I still think about Omar. A lot. We meet once every couple of months. Same place. Same lunch. He still orders a lentil soup and 2 slices of pita. I still forget how damn good the hummus is. He's married now. Has a little girl. One day, over coffee, he told me her name means light In Arabic, he said it reminded him that even in the darkest places, light can grow. He didn't say it to preach. He never does. But I knew what he meant. I've read the Quran 3 times now, cover to cover, slowly, sometimes with tears, sometimes with anger, but always with curiosity. And every time I come back to one verse. And the servants of the Most Merciful are those who walk upon the earth humbly, and when the ignorant address them harshly, they say words of peace. Surah Al-Furqan 25:63. That verse is Omar. That verse is who I want to be. I haven't converted. Not yet. I still drink the occasional beer. Still cuss too much when the Cowboys lose. Still forget to call my sister back half the time. But something's changed in me. I pray now, not 5 times a day, not facing Mecca, but I pray, in my way. I thank God for another sunrise, for silence, for second chances, for people who didn't give up on me, even when I gave them every reason to. And I've started letting go of the old version of me, the man who used power like a shield, who hurt people just to feel taller, who thought faith was weakness and pride was strength. He's gone now, not all at once, but piece by piece, like rust falling off old steel. A few weeks ago, Omar invited me to his home for Eid. His whole family welcomed me like I was their weird white uncle who showed up late to everything. There was laughter, food, prayers, kids running around in tiny traditional clothes. It was chaos, and somehow more peaceful than any boardroom I ever sat in. His father shook my hand and said, "We're glad you're here." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled and said, "Me too." And I meant it. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never tried to sabotage him, if I'd just been a decent boss and let him do his job. Would I have ever seen who I really was? Would I have ever changed? Probably not. Turns out, the worst thing I ever did became the best thing that ever happened to me, because in trying to break him, I broke myself. And in the rubble, I found something I never had before. Peace. Real, unshakable, soul-deep peace. Not because I'm perfect now, but because I finally stopped running.